I'm very happy to be here today to talk about my research about Tongzhou New Town in China. This case is chosen because it can represent a typical type of urban development model in China of the last few decades, which is a combination of top-down master planning and massive bottom-up market-driven initiatives. In this presentation, I will first briefly talk about the New Town trend in China and then focus on Tongzhou New Town, the development process from 1950s to early 2010s. Special attention will be paid to what has been planned and what has actually been developed. And then we are able to identify some characteristics of this new town. For example, land use pattern and the level of urban vitality. Some of this aspect will be compared with the Dutch new town Almere. And in the end, I will try to summarize what we can learn from the case of Tongzhou and what its future could be. So from this chart, we can see that before 1978, the urbanization ratio of China was under 18%. After some 35 years of economic reform, the figure at this moment has increased to over 50. By the year 2030, the new government is aiming to urbanize 70 to 80% of its population, which implies that each year there will be some 400 million people from countryside pouring into the city of the coming decades. So under this context, building new towns has become a popular urban policy in China since the mid-1990s. According to my research, there have been over 200 new towns planned or constructed by 2010. But there are different kinds of new towns in China. In other words, the definition of new town is quite diverted. There can be satellite towns near the megacities, in the new industrial towns, a science park, or specialized economic zones. Or there can be large city extensions, twin city projects. Sometimes, in the latest trend is that the government is building eco-new towns to experiment with the sustainable and low-carbon urban development model. So today we zoom into the capital city of Beijing. The whole metropolitan region has a population of over 20 million people. Over 80% of them concentrated in the central city area. And Tongzhou New Town is the central town in Tongzhou district, and it is one of the most well-developed new towns in the east of Beijing metropolitan region. The town now has a population of over 400,000 people within a land build-up area of 42 square kilometers. Tongzhou New Town is not really new. On the contrary, it is historically a small harbor city situated at the north end of the famous man-made Grand Canal in China during Ming and Qing dynasty. It was busy and prosperous until from the 19th century, the watercourse became gradually deserted and the town lost its strategic function and was in decline since. After the founding of New China in 1949, a series of planning decisions were made with the help of the Soviet Union experts. One of the central ideas was to turn the capital of the new communism country from a cultural city to an industrial city for the working class. All kinds of industries were introduced. In the year 1958, the first town system plan was made for the whole metropolitan region, where 40 satellite towns were designated to accommodate new heavy industries. So during some 30 years of the planned economic era, Tongzhou New Town had received nearly 100 assigned industrial projects. covering the sector of printing, textile, food industries, heavy machinery, chemicals, etc. In the planned economic era, the local authorities must strictly comply with the command from the central authority. However, there was no spatial plan made for the satellite town at that time. So the new coming industries were actually deployed quite scatteredly in the town and village of Tongzhou. And the urban economy during that period was very poor. There was hardly any public investment in city development. It was not only after 1978 the first two neighborhoods were built in Tongzhou. The economic reform towards the socialistic market mechanism started to accelerate since the mid of 1980s, thanks to the legislation of a number of important land policies, including the commercialization of land use right, the resumption of private property ownership, and the starting of mortgage system in China. So to cope with the changes, the first Tongzhou master plan was made in 1984. The central idea is to turn this new town into a self-contained, comprehensive urban center in the region. And one of the several strategic visions were laid down in this document. For example, the new urban core was to be developed based on the historical area. The main city expansion was to the south of the railway, and the new industries will be gathered at the southern periphery of the planning area, and the cultural value of the Grand Canal was to be discovered. So during the 10 years after this master plan, Tongzhou had achieved great advancement in industrial productivity, which makes it one of the most successful industrial towns national-wise. And with the increasing free disposable financial resource, as well as the new land policies, there was a wave of fast government-led development. 28 new neighborhoods was built, as well as a number of large-scale public facilities. But if we look at the map here, those neighborhoods which are colored in red are also dispersed from each other. This is partly because the priority was given to providing new dormitories to factory workers nearby their workplaces. So we can see that the building design of the early neighborhood was very austere. However, there was a generous provision of community services, normally including a primary school, a central garden, an activity center, and sometimes a sports field, a collective cafeteria, and some grocery shops. So the free market economy in China started to flourish since early 1990s. The 93 Beijing Master Plan called for a thorough transformation from industrial city to service society, and control the population size and divert the new urban development to the southeast of the metropolitan region. And Tongzhou was right there at that strategic location. And the 96 Tongzhou Master Plan was basically the same as previous one, except the planning area was 3 times longer than the previous. However, the market-driven development had gone out of the hand of planning control during this period. Or, in other words, there was no effective planning control after all. An increasing number of private developers of different size and competencies emerged in the market. They managed to obtain land under the table with local village authorities and other government agencies who were equally opportunists. So as a result, a number of commercial housing projects were built outside of the planning area across the Grand Canal to the northeast. But even the project built within the planning area did not form obvious contiguous or new urban district. We can only observe some degree of concentration in the extension area to the south of the railway. And this area is later often used as a showcase zone of the local government to show the achievement of the new town development. So the uncoordinated land development put the local government into a passive position in providing infrastructure and utility. And the building quality of the neighborhood built in that period were also not very careful with the building quality as well as the provision of community service. So finally, by the end of 1990s, the local government carried out a thorough inspection of the market, and the national government also makes it obligatory for the private developers to obtain land through public bidding. However, the intention of tighter control of the market did not immediately lead to any slowing down of the real estate market in China, also in Tongzhou. From the early 2000s, a number of external and internal factors triggered a real estate booming in Tongzhou. The development of central business district in the central district in Beijing inner city makes Tongzhou its back garden. And also from the late 1990s, the Beijing city government started to invest heavily in the regional infrastructure connections, and a new light rail was connected to Tongzhou. And also during the same period, the formal socialistic welfare housing system was completely stopped in China. So as a result, internally, the local government put real estate industry as its economic pillar for its 5 years plan, and also the deindustrialization of this period freed more land resources into the market. So this chart below shows the constructed floor area for new housings in Tongzhou. During the peak year of 2003, the amount of housing on sale in Tongzhou counted for half of the total amount in the whole metropolitan region. So between year 2001 and 2008, over 93% of the constructed floor area was for housing in Tongzhou, and over 90% of the properties are middle-rise apartment buildings, and the price of them is only less than half of that in the central city. So the modern and affordable housing attracted a good number of young white collars who work in the central city and come to live in the new town. The newcomers indeed brings a social upgrade and mixture, a positive upgrade and mixture, but Tongzhou has increasingly become a dormitory town. It is estimated that there are more than 270,000 commuters living in the town, which count for more than half of its total population. So the latest master plan of Beijing city put more emphasis on the regional decentralization, because the central city experienced tremendous environmental pressure, as we know. And 11 new towns were designated along 2 development corridors in the metropolitan region. In fact, they are the same old satellite towns developed from the 50s, but the new name is given to them to demonstrate the government's strong ambition to turn them to upgrade them into real self-contained economic center with comparable quality to the central city. And each of the 11 new towns is labeled with a specific economic positioning. For the case of Tongzhou, the focus is to develop finance and business sector, creative and culture industry. In the long term, it reserves the possibility to receive decentralized government offices. So at this stage, spatial planning in China has gained significant importance in guiding urbanization. For example, the master plan of Tongzhou of 2004 is already a joint effort of 13 international and national research and design institute. The planning area is enlarged to 155 square kilometers with a projected population of 1 million by the year 2020. And one of the priorities for the dormitory town is to develop strong employment sector. We can see from the map that each of the subdivided area is fitted with distinctive economic functions. But it was only after 2008 Beijing Olympic Games this ambitious new town plan is picked up again. And after several years of bottom-up development, the local government finally is determined to resume its central role as the main developer of the town. With this national subsidy, it started to invest heavily on the public facilities and infrastructures, and a number of large-scale landmark projects are also planned with the aim to give the Tongzhou new town a national and international recognizable image. The ongoing project include a large-scale business district along the Grand Canal Bank, a cultural district at the historical core, and 2 theme parks at the far north and south end of the planning area. So those beautiful but surreal rendering images are used as a city marketing tool. But however, considering the scale and the nature of this project, aren't they in fact creating a bigger real estate bubble? What's more, the large-scale demolition of the historical urban fabrics, which is to make room for the new project, also erased the traditional urban life and cultural together with the physical environment, and replaced by such mimic of historical building style. So there was a drastic drop in the housing market in Tongzhou since 2005 because of the increasing conservative control of the real estate market in China. And we can see that the new project in Tongzhou actually filling in the missing pieces of the puzzle and making the urban area more connected and complete. And the project tend to be scaled down in size and scale up in quality. And also from the early 2000s, the central government started to assign social housing project to Tongzhou New Town. So if once again we look at the growing process, the complete growing process of Tongzhou New Town of the last few decades, we clearly see a patchwork pattern. The multi-stakeholder, market-driven, spontaneous development approach definitely contributes to the rapid modernization and urbanization of this new town. In 15 years' time, this new town has achieved what many of the top-down planned new towns cannot. It grows largely by itself into a relatively compact city, offering a diversity of social and spatial composition. If we compare with the top-down planned new town Almere in the Netherlands, we can see that the growing process is much more orderly. This new town is planned as a polynuclear structure with 3 distinct urban nodes separated from each other. The growing sequence, is not as rigid as one urban node after another, but clearly it is one cluster by cluster and from center to the periphery. So if we look at the total land use pattern in Tongzhou, we can see the interweaving of industrial sites, the old factories, and the new residential functions, which are correspondingly colored in light gray and darker brown. And there is also a blending of historical and modern urban landscapes and coexistence of poor urban village, as well as a tremendous amount of gated communities for rich people and middle class. Oh, the urban village is actually those blocks with a dash pattern. And if you walk around the town, you can constantly see a montage of the derelict and very brand new building facades. And you can also see a mixture of the delicately designed and urban public space and the forgotten public space. With regard to the distribution of public facilities and the green public spaces, we can see that most of them concentrated in the historical part of the town, as well as the showcase zone. The government seems to have neglected its responsibility to supply to the market-oriented new urban district. But now it is one of their priorities after 2008 to introduce more good schools and hospitals in order to keep and attract more highly educated and higher income people in the town. So to compare with the town of Almere, this new town is almost completely developed by local government with the cooperation of a couple of large-scale state-owned housing corporations. The public facilities were sufficiently supplied based on hierarchies, and they are carefully placed nearby bus stops. So this is actually one of the strongest character of the Dutch welfare society. On the other hand, the strong character of the spontaneous new town Tongzhou lies in its vibrant street life. According to the mapping, the small-scale commercial activities, mainly in the form of ground floor shops attached to the periphery of neighborhoods, they are spreading all over, nearly along every street in the town. The private developers consider it a good selling point for the neighborhood behind it. In the same time, it provides a good number of job opportunities for the young immigrants from the countryside. Also, the tradition of open market for vegetable and food products, which are often found in small towns and villages, is naturally preserved in the old and new urban area in Tongzhou. They are most often spontaneous and informal in the beginning, but lately the government formalized them by either putting up a roof structure above them or setting up a gate as a sign of entrance. But if we look at the distribution of shops and commercial activities in the Tongzhou new town, we can see they are highly concentrated in the planned urban center. The rest of the urban area is almost completely residential. Although, as you might observe the right dots are home-based business in the new town of Almere. There are actually more home-based business in this new town than the average Dutch towns, but they are most of the time indoors and do not directly contribute to activate the street lives. So this new town Almere is largely a quiet and peaceful suburban town. For the case of Tongzhou, informal street life form a significant part of the daily sceneries in the new town. You can find all kinds of street vendors and small street markets nearly outside the neighborhood entrance, the light rail station, public buildings, supermarkets, or anywhere with a pedestrian flow or slow traffic. They are selling things, they repair your shoes, and do all kinds of small business. And there are also a lot of so-called black taxis in this town. They run by the local people because there is a lack of bus service and coverage in the newly constructed area. And these black taxis are run by the local people either by man-powered tricycles or by their private cars. Interestingly, in facing of shortage of recreational facilities in the city, the Tongzhou local inhabitants seem to have a stronger motivation to help themselves by organizing a variety of hobby groups or collective activities. The young people, they use the new town community websites to intensively communicate each other and organize events. And the popular activity for the older generation includes singing and dancing and also exercising in the city public spaces. So this is Tongzhou, a satellite town grown up very fast and spontaneous of the last 15 to 20 years, largely by a multi-stakeholder, market-driven approach. The development did not always go as planned. In fact, sometimes there was no plan or effective planning control, but the process and the process and results brings about creativity and surprises. Although having its spatial problem and also challenges in urban governance, Tongzhou New Town can be seen as a successful case for market-driven self-organization. So at present, spatial planning system in China has become more matured, and the new town development has also come to a crucial stage. And there is an obvious shift of planning and development approach and attitude. The local authority wants to take the full control, and they are going for very grand projects. But will this change from bottom up to top down, from multi-stakeholder to single actor, from incremental development to large-scale transformation, will help achieve the transformation and upgrades this new town has been aiming for? That's an open question. But what we do know is that new town Almere is making changes in the opposite direction. It tries to correct its formal large-scale and top-down monofunctional development approach to the so-called organic growth by ultimately empowering people to build their own houses without much constraints from master planning or zoning regulations, and expecting an interesting and characteristic urban district to generate itself over time. So luckily, we can see that in Tongzhou, A few stronger local village authorities are still playing a role in urban development. They can still take initiatives to make their own territories more attractive and characteristic. For example, by creating landmark buildings, high streets, modern shopping malls, or transform old factories to art galleries. So to sum up, the bottom-up development of the last decades have brought urban vitality and diversity to Tongzhou, which I consider is the most valuable assets and character of this new town. If that should be taken away and replaced by the rational, comprehensive master planning and management, will that makes benefit to the new town and its people in the long run? Or the decision makers should be more looking at an innovative and effective integration of top-down and bottom-up approach. Thank you very much.
Could you tell us what we're looking at here? It looks like a sculpture by Ai Weiwei.
Not really. I use this picture because it shows an interesting combination of the tradition of the villagers. Actually, they use the public space between the buildings as a ground to, to sun-dries the corns. Yeah. But also the neighborhoods behind them was developed by the local village authorities. So there is an interesting integration of different culture and lifestyles, modern and traditional.
Thank you. I have so many questions, but just one or two things that really struck me. You mentioned the gated community.
Yeah.
Does that mean what we understand by that? In other words, is there really criminal activity which people are protecting themselves against by barricading themselves, if you understand me, by building a fortress?
Yeah. Actually, almost every new neighborhood in Tongzhou is gated community, and it is actually a gate with also a fence around the neighborhood area, but probably not so on purpose against the criminals, because it is quite a safe city. Most of the Chinese cities are safe, but I think this model is learned from the famous neighborhood units from Europe and American paradigms. And it is indeed to prevent through traffics and strangers from passing through or harassing the inhabitants, to keep them safe and isolated. Yeah.
Now that you're saying this, I can understand more clearly what is going on. I really think that's a very misleading expression to use. In Chinese cities, including Beijing, you have little community areas which are self-contained, and the neighbors know each other, and the children are watched over.
In fact,
this is so different from what we understand by a gated community, I think. Unless there are some that I don't know about. But usually in North America and essentially a gated community is for the wealthy to protect themselves against crime, which is, I believe, much more widespread than in China. That's a very interesting question, which is another whole issue.
Yeah, actually, not only in this new town. I believe many neighborhoods built in the 90s and early 2000s are gated communities. I appreciate that you bring it up, and it's probably very different. The concept is different from what it means for the North American context. Yeah, because there's not so much criminal activities over there. But in most recent trends, developers don't build good gated communities anymore because there are not so much land resource available in the city area. Instead, they build a cluster of apartment buildings with a very open atmosphere without a gate anymore. Yeah.
I have so many more questions. Do other people want to ask?
I'd like to thank you as well for your presentation.
Yeah.
You mentioned at one point that recently the Chinese government is reinvesting in social housing.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could speak more about that in terms of the current generation of construction and planning in Tongzhou or elsewhere in China.
Yeah, actually, this movement, you can call it a movement, started from early 2010. Before that, the government has already carried out a lot of research about social housing. Because from 1949 to the end of 1990s, there was a socialistic welfare housing system there. The state-owned government agencies actually supply housings to its employers. But by the end of 1990s, that system stopped, and there was a missing a decade's purely commercial housing on the market. And 10 years later, early 2010, the government say we have to resume it because the price of the housing market is sky high, and there was quite some not middle class, lower class of people, they cannot afford housing, and there was actually literally no rental housing, social rental housing in the city of Beijing. So they say we have to provide something different than market housing, and they did a lot of research about, for example, the Dutch social housing system, also in other countries, and they finally make it a national policy to supply it. But by the time they have this policy in mind, there was already not of land available in the central city area. So this large-scale social housing project were most often located in the periphery of the town. Some people say it's create a ghetto again, yeah, concentrating relatively poor people. And most recent, these new towns, these 11 new towns in the Beijing metropolitan region, they all kind of receive this political assignment to build large-scale social housing programs in their territories. Yeah. And if you are interested to know that there are more people wanting the social housing than the supply of the properties, so people have to get unit by way of lottery. Yeah.
Could you talk about the implementation of the light rail system, or how effective was it for the transport and all that? And all the bridges that were built across the canal there?
Yeah.
Is it strictly for cars, people, or mixed, or bicycles, or whatever?
With regard to the light rail, it was the first in the whole metropolitan region to connect the central city with a satellite town. It was planned actually in the year 2000, and it was fully in operation in 2004. And between this period, the developer get to know this planning idea, and they bought the land nearby the light rail station area beforehand, and keep it for a couple of years and until the land price rises and they sell the house afterwards. But on the other hand, the local government did not profit at all from the rising of the land price. With regard to all these bridges, they are, according to my experience, they are mostly for cars, for vehicles. Yeah, there is a pedestrian path, but you don't want to walk on it because it's deserted. It's not pedestrian friendly, and it's also very long distance to cross between different parts of the canal. Yeah.
Beijing used to be a country of, not so long ago, a country of bicycles. And there's been a huge change, of course, with being replaced by cars. We see one bicycle here. I think I saw one other one in the photograph. Have they just disappeared?
There is a song called 1 Million Bicycles in Beijing, I think. But now it's, I think, to exaggerate, only a handful of them in the central city. People don't dare to ride bicycle to risk to have any health problems because of the air pollution. And the city urban design is also not anymore suitable for cyclists. Yeah, all these sidewalks, these bicycle lanes were occupied by cars, become parking spaces for cars, and yeah, there is such no comfortable space for cyclists anymore. Yeah, but in this new town, you can still see some traditional way of life because it's more relaxed and it's more spontaneous, less of top-down planning over there. So it's more a mixture.
Well, it's wonderful to see those scenes of, we see it a bit here, of street life, as you call it. But are you familiar with, for example, what has happened in Copenhagen? The attempt to make bicycles a priority. There's nothing remotely like that here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The direction is completely opposite.
Yeah. It's a shame that China is not famous for cyclists anymore. Yeah, it used to be, and I have some knowledge about the Copenhagen transforming its inner city to a more pedestrian-friendly district, and also I know that the UK is doing the same thing, and also in the Dutch cities, that's where I'm from, you can ride bicycles everywhere. There's an exclusive lane painted in red, and you can follow that in the city and also in the landscape area. It's a shame Chinese cities abandoning this system.
And I wasn't quite sure what you were saying just in answer to that question about the bridges. Were you saying that it was on the bridges are not pedestrian friendly?
Mm-hmm. Because it's
are the streets? To what extent is there pedestrian?
Yeah, the bridges is too large a scale. For example, a bridge it should have like 4 lanes for cars each side, so it's like 50 to, I don't have an estimation, maybe 80 meters wide of a bridge, but only 1 or 2 meters of pedestrian lanes besides it. And I think it's purely for cars, and they don't expect pedestrians to really walk past it. Because, for example, if you walk from this side of the bridge to the other, I think it's already 1 to 2 kilometers. Yeah. Not walkable anymore.
No bicycle lane.
Indeed, no.
Which brings back the public transportation system. In other words, in that town, they work there and they live there. They don't have to drive very far or anything like that. You drive if you want to go to inside Beijing or something like that. Is that it?
Actually, as I said, more than half of the population live there, but work in the central city of Beijing. So there are like more than 200,000 commuters each day. Most of them take the light rail over here.
C'est ça. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes in the peak hour, people have to be pushed into the subways.
Could you expand a little bit about because you said that Tongzhou is one of these 11 new towns, and basically the central government gave a sort of like a mandate to each of them. So you say this one is more about financial district, and so what is the overall idea of like these new towns, and then maybe also these development corridors. If you could explain a little bit more, it's like if these are sort of like barrier where you could not develop inside or you have to develop outside. It's not clear to me.
Yeah, actually, it's very schematic that when they say it's a corridor, because it's not really infrastructural corridor or urban corridor. It's just this new towns. They form kind of shape like that, and they say it's different. These two corridors are different because this one is more urban and this one is more landscape and natural. Because if you're familiar with the geography of Beijing region, to the west of the region is mountain area. So they say that these new towns are restricted with large urban expansions. But interestingly, in fact, the local new town government has great resistance to this kind of master planning. They say we have to be competitive with other new towns. We have to continue with our urban development. So actually, this new town over here is developing very well. It's equal level with Tongzhou new town, although the government said otherwise. You cannot develop very much.
I mean, I want to hear what you think about this very well.
Yeah, first of all, it urbanized very quickly. The other new towns, they don't have the strategic location over here, because the central business district is only 13 kilometers away from Tongzhou new town. So many people actually choose to live here because it's close to work. Yeah.
Okay.
And also in terms of commercial activities, it is one of the most vibrant place among the 11 new towns. Yeah.
I just had a few questions about like comparisons with Almere, like what's the population of Almere, and also what's like in terms of history, like does it have a big historical root as I don't know how to pronounce it, but like I don't know, is it newer, kind of like a newer new town, and also like is that why?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not on top of my head, but I think it's around 114,000 inhabitants in new town of Almere. And the new town started from a clean slate. It started from scratch. It was, sorry, let's find something. It was built on a reclaimed land. They call it a polder in the Netherlands. And you can see the area colored in black are actually water. And the land area where Almere New Town is situated used to be water as well. So they reclaimed this land to create a new town. But in the beginning, the main purpose is to provide more land for agriculture. When later, during the 1990s, there was, actually not 1990s, 1970s, there was good economic condition and large and population booming. So they say we use that land also for urban development. But what you don't see is that there's a vast area behind it, still for agriculture use. And there is not actually historical roots in this new town. It totally starts from scratch. Yeah, diversity is definitely the keywords they're looking for now. In Almere, they interestingly, they did research before they built this new town. They find out that the most popular housing typology in Dutch society is this tourist house. This one, how do you call it, single family house. So almost all housings in Almere city is that type. So that's actually restrict any diversity of population. But they are doing it differently. They want to, for example, make some new apartment buildings in the center. It's not working very well. Yeah, in the city center to attract more students and more single people with diverse backgrounds. Yeah.
Could you just tell us, is this near a large city?
Yes, I forgot to mention, it is near the capital city, not capital city, it's near the city of Amsterdam. Yeah, capital, yeah. Near the city of Amsterdam, I think like 20 kilometers away. Also connect over the water with a bridge to Amsterdam. And there's also tremendous traffic jam. Yes, they are thinking about making another bridge, yeah, parallel with each other.
What does the population work in Amsterdam? Is that the idea?
Yeah, it is actually a good amount of population in the new town of Almere comes from the less wealthy neighborhood of Amsterdam because of the need of urban renewal. So they are attracted also by the affordable housing and also more spacious housing over here. Population, yes. Many of them work in the Amsterdam region. For example, in the Schiphol airport area. That's a huge job center.
What are the plans for the canal use and canal connects? Are they, is there any parks there?
Yeah. Actually, in the 1990s, the government first invested in renovate the canal bank. It was not clean and not tidy at that time. They first make that ready, and also to protect from flooding. And then they make a huge city park with sports facilities and city squares over there. And the picture you're looking at now is their next step. They plan to develop large-scale business district along the canal, but I'm highly questioning this approach.
Why?
Because first of all, they demolished the existing old urban fabrics, which are largely the courtyard housings, and also it's not. To me, it's not realistic to create so many office space without knowing that office will come.
Have you seen, one last question, have you seen what Montreal has done with the Lachine Canal?
I don't know, but I'm interested.
You have to see that before you leave.
Tell me.
Because the Lachine Canal was polluted and disgusting and horrible, and now it is intended to be a tourist attraction. I don't know whether it has succeeded in that, but it is. We have a bicycle path, and it's like a park, so it is really.
It's successful, yeah. Thanks for the suggestion.
And I would have thought perhaps an inspiration for when you. Could you just show? When we saw this before, I wanted to know. Could you show us where is that the canal running the top of the picture? Is that the canal?
Yeah, that's the Grand Canal.
Or is it this one?
This is the Grand. I think this is the Grand Canal over here.
What about is that not a canal running?
The other one, I think they are widening it. It used to be a small one. This is the Grand Canal connecting to the south of the country. Yeah, and this is a canal connecting the harbor in Tongzhou to Beijing central city. It should be a much smaller one. But this kind of rendering image, sometimes they're not very accurate.
The crucial question is, are they preserving green space beside the canal?
Yes. Actually, there is a large-scale forest park. Yeah. Also, yeah, but in my opinion, it's also too large a scale. But I also did some interview to the local people. They actually enjoyed it, and in the night season, they have some hiking and walking and collective activities over there.
It's actually to go back to the bicycling. I'm wondering, since China's big leap forward, that the bicycle in the minds of locals has kind of become passé and not some, not part of moving forward, and is because of that. Sorry, I'm not explaining it very well.
Yeah,
because of moving forward, do they see the bicycle as kind of an antiquity, and they're not, it's not seen as something that would be advanced and moving forward? And the next question that comes to that is, due to the environment, the quality of air condition and whatnot, has the Chinese government seen the bicycle and public transport as in the LRT or whatever the train you were talking about, have they taken the bicycle into consideration for reducing pollution?
Thanks. Yeah. But first of all, I think Chinese cities develop into car-oriented cities. Actually, it is follow the model of North American. It's not European. And when it comes to the time that the government thinks is too many cars on the streets, and it's already unstoppable because you cannot stop people to own a car. Yeah, but actually, what they are doing now is also for people to obtain, how do you call it, plate by lottery. So it's not easy anymore. And in the city of Shanghai, and you have to go through a bidding in order to get a plate. But unfortunately, I don't think they are reintroducing the bicycle system. Even in this latest so-called eco-new towns, they are largely car dependent. In terms of public transport, before and after 2008 Olympic Games, they are digging a lot of new underground subways, and they are highly subsidized people to use them. And you pay literally very little money to get on the subway system without having to pay extra for very long distance. Yeah.